Do good work is not a label, but a way of living. It is the constant and diligent effort to achieve a new level of excellence in one's own life. It is the hidden inner beauty behind the struggle to achieve excellence. It's not perfect, but imperfect. It is the effort, discipline, and focus that often goes unnoticed. The goal of Do Good Work is to highlight that drive. The guests I have on this show emulate this drive in their own special way. You'll be able to apply new ideas into your own life by learning from them. We will also have one-on-one episodes with me where we'll dive into my own experience with entrepreneurship and leadership. Every episode is designed to provide you with ideas that you can apply and grow in excellence in all areas of your life, business, and career.
Today we have Zach Moreno. He's a technologist, podcaster, author, and co-founder of SquadCast's, a software as a service that allows high-quality remote recording for podcasters and creatives without compromising the quality of sound. He and his team are on a mission to connect creatives and amplify collaboration. They work with companies like ESPN, Vox, Spotify, and have serviced over 100 countries at the time of this recording. They're still growing. So Zach, thanks so much for being on today, man.
I really appreciate it, Raul.
So walk me through the journey when it comes to creating SquadCast. Like, was it a trend in the industry that you were seeing and then you had to create it? Was it an issue that you were solving for yourself? Typically, that's how founders' journeys typically start. But I'd love to learn about your unique journey here with SquadCast.
Yeah, and it's been a really fun journey. We've been at it about 4 years, but to kind of go back to the start, it came out of frustration, to answer your question, and that was a challenge that we found when we set out to start our own podcast. I wanted to do a creative side project that wasn't in software engineering or involved writing more code. I wanted to kind of go back to my roots in some ways and do something in a creative medium that wasn't software, and I was a bit burnt out on that, and really was inspired as a listener of podcasts by a new genre that I read about in Wired magazine of science fiction audio dramas and like fictional storytelling, and that just blew my mind because if podcasting was a bookstore before then, it would have been all nonfiction. And then all of a sudden it was like this whole other side of the coin was revealed. And now there was this whole fiction possibility. That really inspired me to say, okay, well, instead of going back to painting or sculpture or any of the other kind of creative work that I had done in the past, let's do something new outside of my comfort zone and just see what we can do. And I've always loved science fiction. I'd always loved podcasting. My co-founder, Rock, actually introduced me as a listener to podcasts back when we were in high school together. And then my brother is an audio engineer and sound designer. And my best friend is a decorated playwright. And he and I have a love for sci-fi. So we thought that would be enough skills to like do this well and get that going. And the catch was that we were not in the same location. We couldn't get together and record any content on a regular basis, which I know you're a beast when it comes to your cadence and getting content produced. For us, it would need to be like we'd get maybe 2-3 episodes out a year because we're spread across California. And we just did our homework and kept kind of researching how do we record quality audio without being in the same location? How do we do that remotely? How can we not sacrifice the quality and kind of have our cake and eat it too? And we, came up empty-handed with that research. And we just kept asking podcast OGs and looking around and just didn't find an answer other than Skype plus some other software. And you'll sound great, but the person on the other end is going to sound like they're recorded over the network. That just wasn't up to our standard. And we just kept assuming it was a solved problem because podcasting had been around for years before that. And those, longtime podcasters told us like, no, this is the state of the art. And when we kind of pushed on that a little bit deeper, nobody was happy with the state of the art. It was just kind of the accepted norm of the day. So that's really where we took our frustration and turned that around and saw an opportunity to solve this old problem with a very new approach. And that's led us down this journey of listening to the podcast community, what they need, and using modern technology to bring that to life for them to have their productions very high quality and also remote.
I love that. This is, walking backwards in time. This is before remote work was the thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because my co-founder and I actually we had been afforded the opportunity to have jobs that allowed us to do some amount of minimal remote work, because I'm a software engineer on the web, and anybody who's done kind of midnight updates on a website, like, you kind of have to be at home, right? So I had done some of that, and also my co-founder Rock had done that, and we saw that trend increasing even back then.
Hmm.
Like his partner and my partner had kind of started to have that conversation with their employers, and was like, this is probably going to future of work now, right? I think, is a lot of people call it, and yeah, remote work setups. So I'm really glad that's one of the trends that we are, kind of a wave that we are riding on SquadCast, as well as podcasting being its own growing wave of increased creatives and more content being produced remotely. And that's the way we see it, is that we are working to define this new category of remote content production, that being rooted in quality audio for podcasting, and also we are expanding into video very soon. So just more and more creative possibilities with high quality content from the same core conversation. So if you invest an hour with your guest, you have all these creative possibilities from the content, the source content that we help you create.
And I want to dive into that specifically and unpack that, but I want to take it back to, you were doing a creative outlet, creating your own like passion side project, right? Which led to this big issue, which led you to a status quo. How did you face and go against what high-end professionals would tell you? This is how it is. This is state of the art. What do you mean there's something more? How did you go against the status quo and create something that is state of the art?
Yeah, I think a few different ways I can answer that question. I mean, one, they weren't necessarily satisfied with the quality they were getting. It was just kind of like, this is the best we can do. It's better than a phone call. Was kind of like the tunnel vision that sometimes people can get in when it comes to these technologies, and it's like, well, we're taking these incremental step forward, and it's like, really, we need this giant leap with a whole new approach. And that's the way I saw it. I just didn't want to assume. Like, we legit just wanted to solve this problem for ourselves so that we could create our podcast. And it felt like an assumption to think like, okay, well, actually, we need to build some technology to help facilitate that. But the more we had those conversations, just became more clear to us that no, there's really an opportunity here, and we just wanted to be sure, like, okay, we didn't invent this problem. We're not the only ones who experience this and have desire for higher quality. The good thing about audio quality is that it's measurable. So we knew based on that we had hypotheses for why the quality was being degraded. We had kind of some intuition there. We had understanding of how audio, digital audio signal processing and things like that worked from the experience with my brother. And we just started to kind of formulate those hypotheses and come up with some experiments on how we could try to get higher quality. And that really was the catalyst for the product that we've now kind of built it into a platform and a product. But back then it was a pre MVP. Even it was just an experiment to see if we could get higher quality by going about it a fundamentally different way. And that really has turned into 2 patents that we're really proud to have filed this year. And it's really rooted in quality and reliability with the new technology we've had the opportunity to create.
And that's the staple of the brand too: quality, reliability. And I do want to dive into more about podcasting and the creative outlet in regards to the opportunities that I can bring, and seeing your trends and see what you're seeing there. But
Oh yeah.
I do want to a little understand your way of thinking, your frameworks, because any other person maybe would have just said, okay, this is how it is. I'm just going to do my podcasting for fun, but I'm not going to tinker with its prompts. It's an open loop that you needed to solve. And the way that you had the right team with the right experience to help you create experiments and measure those experiments to produce something new. we don't have to dive in too much into like the proprietary IP, but I really want to understand, how did you unpackage or create a new framework in regards to how audio can be recorded, measured, and have higher quality over your remote distance?
It's quite a process overall, like these remote conversations. So really, it was about we're very much students of what has come before, and the attempts to do this in the past. So that starts back with like terrestrial radio, when people would
Mm.
do these things called the double ender, which is a terrible name. I think we can all agree on, but that's what the nerds back then called it. Um, and then we just kind of stepped our way through history up to the state of the art where we are now. And with Skype, it's very much a it's true for Zoom too. It's very much a communications platform
Mm.
that has a feature that helps you record. That recording feature wasn't necessarily designed for content creation that's going to
Mm.
be consumed by millions of people. The way we saw it was, okay, we know that the purpose of this kind of recording is for a different outcome. So that's a design constraint that we can take into account from day one.
Mhm.
And then also, let's reverse that and let's build a audio recording platform that just so happens to have a feature of remote communication.
Hmm.
So a figure ground reversal of the what we chose to prioritize with what we build. And then the whole experimentation process and everything. A lot of people call that the lean startup methodology,
Mhm.
and you know that's got a rich heritage of helping many startups do these experiments, figure out what works, and move forward. But I went to art school before being in kind of startup land, and to me, it's the exact same thing as design thinking.
Mhm.
Championed by the D School at Stanford, I believe. Um, so to me, I was used to doing those sorts of experiments and talking to people, getting their feedback, listening and learning from that. And I think that's a real core part of what has led to our success is that the podcast industry is essentially made up of people who speak for a living. They're professional speakers. It just so happens that we all have our own stage these days, and
Mhm.
that's a real powerful thing. Um, but we learned really early on the benefits of listening. And it's a real gift that our customers and the industry tells us, articulates, and communicates effectively what it is that they want and need from their tools and their platforms. And we need to be really good at listening.
Mhm.
So that's really been a process that we've been able to repeat over and over again that has led us to where we are today.
And I want to unpack that a little bit for our listeners. Is studying history in the industry or the problem that you're looking to solve. So always looking what has been built. And then I love that you reframed the problem based on the core values that you were looking for, higher quality in terms of audio. So reshifting or redesigning, seeing it from a different lens, and then from there, testing, measuring, listening, feedback loops. And
Yeah.
not to oversimplify it, but I do want to be able to have our listeners understand kind of a process when it comes to looking at opportunities, solving problems in a unique way, in an innovative way. And so you have this MVP now. You're probably doing your podcast. Walk us through the next step. How did you know that this would be a viable solution to the marketplace, and what was your go-to-market strategy?
And finding a challenge and figuring out a solution doesn't necessarily equal a company, right? I think
Mhm.
is another way to say your question. And I think a lot of startups, like, that's a uh, really big pitfall that can be fell into early on. So that's really where I had formulated this hypothesis. I had formulated a potential solution even pre technology or software or any of that stuff. But it was like a solid hypothesis that we could talk to people about, and because the background of my brother and his audio background was like, I think this will work. Like, we're confident enough to even talk about it.
Mhm.
And then once we learned from podcasters that this wasn't a made up problem that only we had, because that's another thing that can happen, is that you could have invented this problem, but nobody else in the world has it. So therefore, there's no market fit. There's no market for it.
Mhm.
So we learned from those conversations with podcasters early on. We chose to sponsor the largest conference in the podcast industry, as Podcast Movement, every year,
Mhm.
and we were really grateful that they took a chance on us and allowed us to sponsor that year's event. And it we were very lucky that it was in our home state of California, in Anaheim. We could drive from the Bay Area down to Anaheim. We paid out of pocket and just said, okay, we're going to go, and it's going to be a really intense 3 days, but we want to walk away from that with having validated or not that that this was a problem shared by many people, that there was a market for solving this problem. And before that, I had approached my co-founder, Rock, who has more of a business and finance background, who I believe you've talked to on your podcast. So it'd be cool to hear both sides of this story. I had been working with Rock, and I knew, okay, we need a product, we need technology, but we also need a company. And to make that sustainable and or go and fundraise, or however we're going to do that. And that's really where our partnership fits so neatly together, is that that I have this emphasis on product and technology, but also am growing in the direction of business and finance. And Rock, the same is true for him, but in reverse, where he has this background in business and finance, but he is growing in the direction of product and technology. So that's a really symbiotic relationship, and it's fundamentally, it's rooted in our trust and friendship. So it was a list of one for potential co-founders, but I either wouldn't have done it, or I have been a solo founder. But I don't necessarily recommend that journey either. But I respect anybody who's on it as a solo founder. That takes a lot. So yeah, that's really where we blended these two skills of product and technology, business and finance. And he's kind of an unconventional choice for a co-founder. I think a lot of people in the startup education world actually recommend against attorneys and accountants as co-founders. But I suspect there might be alternative motives there. So I don't want to go down that road necessarily, but Rock is an amazing co-founder, and he's not just an accountant, right? That would be selling him so short. So that's really where we knew we needed to find product market fit and get to a place where we could actually solve this problem for the podcast community. And we would get there by iterating through these cycles of experimentation, learning, and listening, taking that in, and then trying to have those feedback loops be as tight as possible. And really, that came to life through our founding advisor, Harry Duran, who we met with weekly for almost 2 years. Now we meet with him like a little bit less frequently, but still very regularly. I'm talking to him later today, in fact. And he became the voice of the podcast community that we could kind of sum up and listen to and get actionable feedback day after day. To continue moving the product forward. And that really accelerated our trajectory. Yeah.
And I love the fact that you were able to create allies with a central hub of nearly what every podcaster has been connected to. So that also the exposure to be able to get more data, more feedback, and kind of increase the trajectory, the velocity moving forward.
Yeah. And Harry is the host of a podcast called Podcast Junkies, which their slogan is the podcaster's voice. So he is, listening to a lot of podcasters and their needs, and also was recording all those remotely. Not happy. So he fit into that category. And then also he has a full service podcast production company called Fullcast. And the combination of those, plus he had done a startup and an app a few years prior to that. So he is a fantastic founding advisor, and I'm so grateful that we met him actually at that same event at Podcast Movement. So we walked away, with the way I think about it was kind of three things, or three not things. Two of them are people. So apologies there, but we got the validation of, yes, there's a market. This is not an invented problem, and that there is a real hunger and thirst for a new solution to this problem. And then also we met Harry and forged a relationship that we nurtured and grew from there. And then the wild card was we also got exactly one customer to sign up. And I'm so grateful that Gina is still a customer of ours to this day.
And that's how it starts, with one. Now, moving forward and getting trajectory. So I want to hear it from your perspective in regards to the trends in the marketplace, not only just with content creation, with where podcasts are going. And if we can talk about, like, you've recorded, I think you mentioned a year's worth of audio in the last month or so.
Yeah, last month, over a year of audio was recorded.
Wow.
I believe a couple years was spent just connected and having conversations with people, over 123 countries, and it's just staggering the global scale that we're able to help podcasters connect with their guests and record quality audio, almost from anywhere. There's a few countries that block not just our service, but a lot of different services, and that's unfortunate for the open web platform. But I think we're really grateful we can have had that opportunity to help so many people get their
And you're
message
just
out
getting
there.
started too. Yeah, you're just getting started too. So with that, in your perspective, the way that you're seeing this, where is podcasting going? And what are some of the trends you're seeing in the marketplace for our listeners to keep an eye on?
Yeah, well, again, we kind of have our own hypotheses for that and our own point of view, um, and we take that into account. But it's not like we're not like shutting out the world and what's
Oh,
happening. Like that's actually very important. So
mhm,
that's really where we look at research, and we look at just momentum within the community is another big factor there. Conversations that we have with our customers and the needs that they have, the needs that their guests have, the
mhm,
needs that bigger production teams have. Like we work with ESPN and Vox and Gimlet, and Spotify, and they have a crazy, you know, very different approach to. Maybe I shouldn't call it crazy, but they have a very different approach to recording and producing their podcast episodes. And I
mhm.
think it shows with their audience, and the home runs they're able to hit over and over. So we're learning a lot about the ways that Marvel produces a fictional podcast versus an interview show like our advisor Jordan Harbinger records. There are different use cases there. They're all under this umbrella of podcasting, but
Mhm.
we're paying attention to all of those things, and we've learned some very interesting ways that we can continue to facilitate remote collaboration, really enhancing the workflow of the different podcasters, personas that we get to work with.
Mhm.
And, some really exciting things there that, just to be transparent, we were skeptical about adding video to the platform.
Really?
Well, we have always had video for the flowing dialogue and conversation, but we weren't recording it. We were only recording the audio because
Mhm.
that's what a podcast is, and you might even be able to say was. It's actively evolving,
Mhm.
and that's a beautiful thing. And that's actually what our podcast, Between Two Mics, is about: is really exploring where those innovation, who's out on the edge, defining and redefining what podcasting is, because it's actively being defined right now, and not necessarily by us, or it's a whole community of creatives
Yeah.
that, like yourself, that are out here pushing it forward in different directions. So we pay attention to that. And um, Edison Research publishes a report every year called the Infinite Dial, where
Mhm.
they poll and talk to and collect data about different listening habits. It's more so focused on the consumption and listening of podcasts,
Mhm.
um, but we really rooted our decision to move in the direction of video recording to answer your question kind of in the near term. I can also provide a longer term answer. But
Mhm.
in the near term, we chose to go in the direction of adding video recording. One, because we already had it on the platform for
Mhm.
the conversation. Two, our customers had been requesting it almost from day one, because
Mhm.
it's kind of obvious to say, oh, well, we have this video. Why can't we record that? And they're right about that. And there's all kinds of creative potential that you get by moving across these barriers between audio and video. And really what that's rooted in, and it comes back to our mission at SquadCast to amplify collaboration. We do all of this work as content creatives and podcasters, to some degree for ourselves, to some degree for our guest, but to a large degree because of the audience and the
Mhm.
listeners that we're in service of. And that's really where audio quality matters the most, is to
Yep.
the audience. That's also where we rooted our decision to go in the direction of video, from the data that we already had through that feedback. But then also, in Edison's Infinite Dial report, they talked to all these podcast listeners and audience members, and to them, it's not really a podcast. It's a show. And that show can be listened through these different podcast apps. They can also watch stories on Instagram. They can also watch the video of it on YouTube. They can comment and engage across these boundaries. To them, these boundaries don't really exist. To us, or it's just a different app that they click on, whatever,
different experience. Yeah.
Right. If I'm washing the dishes or driving to work, I can listen to that episode. But if I'm on my lunch break, I can watch that episode. Or if I'm in the elevator, I can like that story on Instagram. Right? It fits into their day in different ways, and people have different consumption habits. So it's really meeting your audience where they are. And providing a quality content experience for them to engage with that message in that episode. And that's really where we got very excited based on that research to say, okay, audiences want this too, creatives want this, and guests want to meet more audience and grow and to get their message in more places. So that's really where the trifecta of that kind of perspective was formulated. And also our approach to recording audio lent itself to recording video as well. Our recording engine almost doesn't care if it's audio or video. And that's the IP that I mentioned before, is this approach to how we record. We record everybody locally and in separate files. That way you have very high quality audio and then also video. And then we push that up to the cloud in the background while you're recording, which gets us the quality from being local, and then the reliability of if the internet goes out or the power goes out or your microphone gets unplugged or any of those edge cases that actually do happen in the real world, we can still succeed and be reliable even in those circumstances. So that's really where we made that decision to go in the direction of video. And then beyond that, we have some really, really interesting ideas for based on what we've been learning from the Marvels of the world, the Spotify's of the world, and also our customers currently, which includes them, to really help facilitate a rich audience experience. So a lot of people ask us like, "Hey Zach, can I go live from SquadCast?" And the answer is, yeah, that shouldn't be too crazy to add. But there's another side of that coin as well that is a little bit less obvious, and that's the ability to have a private audience viewing your conversation, listening to the raw conversation. I think that idea also came from our advisor Harry Duran originally, where you could imagine having a premium Patreon tier where those patrons get access to the raw interview as it's being recorded and can have some engagement there. And that's very exciting. There's other reasons as well that I can go into if you like, but it's really exciting to us to get these creative possibilities out in the world.
I'm afraid to ask this question, and then if it's okay if you don't want to answer, but without like money being a constraint, with the possibilities of tech and what exists right now, because in 5 years it might be different. What is like the kind of the epitome of the future that you want to build with Squadcast right now with what you're seeing? So what is what you want to build? What is the experience like? What are the users engaging with? What are you building at in the future? What are you seeing that?
I think bringing the right now we have a really compelling. I love that question, by the way, because this is what I think about all the time, and then also I ask our customers, like, set all the stuff aside. What's your perfect situation? What's your ideal here? And that really can get to a very creative place. We have a thesis that creativity is enhanced by collaboration. So if you're doing something solo, you can be creative. You can absolutely create amazing content. And a lot of the world's works of art and books and everything were created in kind of one person's head first, and then expressed in other ways. But we feel that essentially two heads are better than one, or more people, because you get this improv nature to it where you're not quite sure where things are going to go. You get diversity of thought. You get a number of things that enhance the creative possibilities. So that's really where the remote aspect comes in, where we can connect people and then creativity can go in different directions from there. So we believe that any form of content should be you can create any form of content without sacrificing any quality remotely with anybody in the world. And that is really interesting to consider. Of course, we started in podcasting and we have our roots. We have our roots in podcasting. And then also you talk to people who do YouTube. We've gone to a number of conferences that are focused on video creation. And to them, audio is paramount as well. So it's actually a really great place to start. Like if we had started in video and then tried to work our way into audio, that's almost the opposite way, kind of swimming upstream. And like if you have an 8K video, but the audio is phone call quality, it's not going to get you to a couple million views. So we have our roots in audio and we're not losing sight of that, but we're adding video. It's not a stretch to imagine, transcripts as part of that. That's another feature that gets requested often. I mean, we have some really interesting ideas for how we can enhance that even by making it this collaborative experience. And really, we want to unlock content creation out of the physical location, out of constrained by my co-founder. I have this reputation of kind of really talking about things in these gigantic ways. And, to me, it's like space and time should not matter. So any space, any time, you can connect and create anything with anyone, anywhere. And that's, I think, the most general way that I can put it.
Yeah, that's huge.
But I love space, I love physics, and that's really coming through in that statement. So
That's incredible. And I mean, wanted to kind of step away and kind of review what you just mentioned. I think that last one that just threw me off, the space and time should not matter in the content creation piece. And I think you're right, though, specifically in how one of the things that I'm seeing too when I speak to founders, when I speak to entrepreneurs, as well as a trends and some of my clients internally, is that the human element won't be gone. We will leverage technology, we will leverage AI, we will leverage all those three, but the human element will never be gone. And the key component to that is connection, which
Right.
sparks collaboration, which sparks ingenuity or like innovation. So the fact that you're honing on that on the creative side and starting with podcasts, heading to video, who knows what's going to be next with VR or potentially different ways of content creating itself after it's been raw published. So there's a lot of different ways that
Yeah.
can head into the future. And
To your point, I apologize for interrupting, but this is a very interesting topic to me as well. And to your point, I think of it as like human in the loop. Like we will use these tools, but there is a human curating or at least or more people, hopefully. And then the other piece is like if you look at what's happened with like chess and Go with AI, we can kind of start to see the future there a little bit because those are kind of microcosms of how things will play out. And Gary Kasparov, he was not defeated by Deep Blue and then went into some hermit-like state where he fell off or anything. He and every other chess player that plays today professionally is a better chess player because of AI. They learn things from how the patterns that are spotted by the AI. And the same is true for Go, where Lee Sedol is and the game of Go is being moved forward in new ways by humans and AI working and learning together. And that's just a beautiful thing to me.
It's incredible, right? And it's almost to going, not to put it as simple, but when people were breaking, I think, was it the 4-minute mile, the 5-minute mile before you thought it was possible? Now it is possible. Now more people are going to push things forward, leveraging technology. Clearly I'm not.
That's crazy. Me neither.
No, but no, and I love the fact because right now, like being transparent with the audience, when I patch solutions for podcasting, right now we're doing video that can be sent to my AI transcripting software, which takes the audio and then puts it into a doc for me that we can have an editor do. But again, manual labor, zapping, connections, integrations, and then having team members be able to do that. But if it's facilitated through technology, so that all we have to do is create and think of more ways of how to be creative, you're unlocking more creative potential.
That is, I think, the clearest way to articulate our goal. is to enhance the creative possibilities and add potential creative solutions. So that is what we get the opportunity to do every day, and I love that because my personal uh, life's mission is to connect creatives, and I believe that creativity is enhanced by connection in the same way that you shared. That is something where in my life I try to live that by balancing this ratio of creation to consumption. It's impossible. If anybody's tried that, I've been trying for like a couple decades now. It's impossible because because you need to consume to get inspiration, right? So, and the ratio there is probably a lot more consumption, a lot more inspiration for every like one thing that you create. Um, but I do believe that trying is still a good exercise, and I was never able to really make much progress on that until we founded SquadCast, and now my creativity is helping other people express their creativity and amplify that, and that's really um the only way that I've found to move the needle on that ratio of creation versus consumption. And
Because
yeah,
they're almost two infinites, really.
yes, they are, and I'm grateful that they are, because if me and you reconnect next week or add a third person to this conversation or something like that, the conversation would be completely different,
Yes.
even though we get to know each other better and better every time. It will still be that, and that's where that kind of wild card, that improv nature comes into play, and I think that's another source of kind of inspiration that's just in the universe, in the ether. I'm not sure where it comes from.
No, and I love, and to back up a little bit what you mentioned, it's our mind has the capacity, I'm not sure if we can, but the capacity to fill infinite amounts of knowledge. You don't get full with your mind. You might get tired, but you don't get full. Same thing with creativity. I think that we have the potential of infinite, like there's no largest number in the world. You can't imagine it, but then what's another one that you can imagine bigger than that? So two infinites, and your technology is helping bridge the gap in time, because we are beings in time. We exist through time, so we have to go through time, but able to bridge that gap. You're hitting. So, I mean, again, this is big picture talk. I'm not sure if Rock appreciates that, but
Oh yeah, he does. He does.
okay.
It doesn't come through in our marketing material because it's a little
It's
too
too
philosophical.
it's very abstract. It's very abstract, but I completely understand where you're coming from and the mission that you're doing there. But Zach, I think without talking more about space, time, quantum mechanics, where's the best place for listeners to thank you for this episode, learn more about you and SquadCast?
Yeah, no, we love helping creatives get their message out through the medium of podcasting. We are just getting started within podcasting. Like, if you look at the ratio of podcasts versus YouTube channels, we got a long way to go. And there's a lot of room for you to get your message out there, whether you're a solo creative, whether you're a company. Um, all of those things are enhanced by podcasting. So we would love the opportunity to help you create those forms of content for your audience to listen and grow from your message, and that's super easy on our platform, SquadCast.fm. If you check that out, we are very available and open to helping people create that content, whether it's on SquadCast or not. We have a bunch of resources on our blog and our YouTube channel, our podcast, Between Two Mics, and just find a way to connect with us, and we can get you going on your podcast. That's again, that's our website is SquadCast.fm.
Wonderful. Well, Zach, thank you so much for being on, man.
Really appreciate it as well. This has been a fun hour to connect with you. Thank you.